I'm angry about pets.
When did we all get this dumb? Almost only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades, and nuclear warfare. I don't see any bodies, so it doesn't count.
I'm angry about pets.
I'm the chef. I want to hear one thing. Yes, chef. Come on, man. Use your brain. The Why I'm Angry podcast starts now. Oh, finally here. All right, we are live here tonight. It is the Why I'm Angry podcast. I am the chef here in the Freestyle Man Cave studio. Sorry for the delay there, trying to get X running since they no longer allow us to go live on X without a premium account. And until we get a bunch of followers, a bunch of following, we can't get a premium account. So we're not one of those big fish that, self-funded with millions of dollars or sponsored by major funding or anything like that. So that's what I did wrong. So we need your help. And the more and quicker and more often that we get some help, we can get in and help you and get the word out. I just hit the wrong button. Instead of sign up, I wanted to sign in. And, if you want to help and you're on the podcast after the live stream here now, get on our Spreaker page. Go to Spreaker.com. I'm going to put it in the comments on our Facebook page, on all of the pages I can comment to, and get that set up right now. But so real easy. It's $2 a month. And we get you some extra content, like I'm going to talk to Moggs next week, and that's going to go on there. So you might get to hear about 5 or so minutes. I might cut some minutes and put into a regular podcast, but you're not going to hear the whole podcast unless you do the $2 a month support. And we just make it some extra content so that it's worthwhile getting it. You probably won't see any more 2-hour podcasts live or 2-hour podcasts on your actual podcasting because honestly, all of that extra after an hour and a half of podcasting, all of that extra is good content that we can put on our page, and you can listen to the whole thing with some support. And we just got to build some value into that, and help you guys see some value there, and then we'll get the support we need to be able to upgrade cameras, upgrade different things without without everything coming out of our pocket. We can also get some more people on who can interact and things like that. I was actually out at one of our local fairs this week, and was talking to one of the guys in Ohio here that is running for the state legislature, and just had a good conversation with him. And there we go, got that set up. And so just had a good conversation with him, and talked about what his thoughts were, what his opinions are. His name is Jonathan Newman, and I think that his ideas are good. If you go to electjonathannewman.com, that is I think it's .com. I just said .com. That's where you'll get the information about him. Again, if you take just my endorsement, then that's just silly. So go on electjonathannewman.com, get some information about him, and get his information, and just search it out, figure it out for yourself. I like on his thing, or on his advertisement deal. He kind of lays it out. He wants to say he's a courageous defender of, and then he lists it out. The unborn. Even though issue 1 passed, he'll never stop working to protect the unborn and end abortion. Never. Child safety. Girls sports. A boy must not be allowed to take a girl's place on girls' teams, and threaten their safety on an uneven playing field. And we've talked about this a little bit, and again, it was highlighted in the Olympics, where a boxer, a female boxer ish, and it's one of those gray areas that we've got to figure out. But she was allowed to, and I use that as I can. But it's a situation where, I've heard it a little here and there that, obviously they tried to make it a trans deal. And then I heard that, maybe has that hermaphroditism, that she has both genitalia when she's born, or he's born, or whatever. And that they, decide which way they're going to go with that. And girl is easier genitalia wise to work to fix, because there's no real like prosthetics. It's more just plastic surgery type thing, fixing it up to make it the way it's supposed to be. But that being said, this person has a Y chromosome, which gets them into a level of hormones, HGH, human growth hormones, that just isn't matched by any kind of woman, and we've seen it over and over again. Venus and Serena Williams playing the 200th, best tennis player in the world, 200 and something, and getting wiped out like they were just nobodies. And the U.S. women's national team playing Wrexham, who is a third-rate team at the moment. Moving up, no shade, but they are in the second or third tier of the English Premier League at the time, and they got beat like 6 or 7, or I don't even remember the score. It was pretty high, and so when it comes to women playing men biologically in sports, it it's just not fair, and that's what it is. It's more than more than caring about the person who whether they've whether it's more about the being fair in the sport than it is caring about how that person is living their life. I don't care. Like, here's the deal: if you want to be a lesbian, you want to be whoever you want to be, that's fine. I love you, and all of that. My stance as a Christian on it, and we can be friends. And as long as you're not shoving it down my throat, I don't care. I'm not going to push Christianity down your throat, because that's not how you make friends and influence people. That's not how you show God the gospel. The gospel is shown by living a life that is an example of Christ. And so, not that I support it, not that or anything like that, where I'm not going to support you by going to your wedding, and things like that. But I will support you in being a human being, and being being part of your life. But if you want to step in the pulpit and preach, I'm not supporting that, because you're not living a sanctified or a lifestyle that exemplifies Christ. So there's the soapbox on that. But it is a fairness issue. I mean, this person clubbed this girl from Japan in the face 10 seconds into the fight, and she just crumpled. And this is one of this Japanese lady is one of the top 50 fighters in the world in her weight class, I'm sure. And so it's just it's just one of those deals. It's a fairness issue. There's a reason that trans women are winning women's sports. Or if they weren't number one all the time, then we wouldn't talk about it. It wouldn't be a thing. But because because they are, it is a thing. Is it fair? It's like it's like it's like taking steroids. Is that fair? The guys that took steroids in baseball, they hit 50 to 70 some home runs, 80 home runs. Where your standard everyday guy would hit 40 and be a king. I mean, that was great. And that was part of the greatness of being of being a baseball player at that time. That if you could do 10 or 12 great years at around 40, you'd hit 500 home runs. And that's why you would go to the Hall of Fame. That was a level to get to. At one time, up into the 90s, there had only been like a half a dozen people hit 500 home runs. And you go past that, baseball is trying to save itself from the cocaine era and all of that kind of stuff. And so, they thought, well, we'll let a few slide and let a few guys get, 50 home runs or 60 home runs, get close to the record or break the record. And so, that's what it is it's making people who are normal good, people who are good great, people who are great, it's making them gods. It's making them Hall of Famers. It's making them the bigger and better than life. And so that's kind of the ADHD rabbit trail. My wife went on a rabbit trail the other day in our Bible study, and she said, and I can't even remember what what it was about, but it was literally like she said, "Well, isn't it cool how God does blah blah blah?" And she goes, "That's my bunny trail," and I'm like, that seemed like more of a lookout stop off, like this is the turnout for if you Lookout Ridge or something where you just pull off this side of the road and park, and that's the trail. It didn't seem like much of a bunny trail to me, but that's on the other things. Second Amendment, the right for people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. I will oppose the attempt to do so. Growing business, he will not stop fighting for endless regulation of big government overreach so that Ohio businesses can do what they do best. He stands for low taxes. Out of control spending is checked, and the family flourishes when more money stays in their pocket. Farm families, and this is a big one that we've been fighting against as a government, as a country. We've been fighting against the farm family, farm life, and I even mentioned, the guys with the video social media setup out in Idaho that started Rebel Farmers Co-op, and so they talked about that the Biden administration wanted them to shut down their watering operation, which would kill their farm. And they've talked about in Kansas, we've got family in Kansas that has giant cornfields and stuff like that, and they haven't had rain they had pretty much drought all summer, and with that, they don't have any corn. And so, with the new regulations and things like that, they can't water as much, use as much water, and they've lost their crop. And so what happens there is either their farm could has the possibility to go under, or the government comes in and subsidizes them. And we say, "Oh, great job, government, for keeping farms going." But if the government hadn't put regulations in place that killed the farm, they wouldn't have to, they wouldn't have to support that farm. So I think if more people, more politicians, more of us stood up and really showed that what we believe in, then we'd be in a lot better place. And he's also a defender of first responders, ensuring that people who respond have the support and the resources that they need. And so, so I think all of that's good stuff. Get on, make sure that that he, his values, his things, line up with yours. But I commend him for doing what I've been telling you guys to do. Stand up, say something, do something. I'm not saying if you see something, say something. I'm saying now that you see something, because we're all woke up, we all see the writing on the wall, we all see the violence inherent in the system, we all see the control, the power that they've grabbed or that's been grabbed in the system. And with that, we need people to stand up and educate themselves, get out there and do things. That's why we ask for support is we try to be a voice in the darkness. We try to be a voice, just lifting it up and getting you out there and getting you educated. But we can't be the only education, and we can't be the only people. If I'm the only one out here shouting, I'm just a crazy bear shouting in the woods. And there's no consequence or anything like that. But if 100 of you guys start shouting the same thing I'm shouting, we become a movement. We become a group of like-minded individuals trying to push the agenda, trying to push what we believe out there. You're trying to make the world a better place on that. So that's why I keep telling you guys, get out there, get your stuff in order, and make the world different. Make a difference out there. And with that, you then exemplify, like I was just saying, then exemplify the traits that you want to be. So if you're a Christian, you exemplify Christianity. If you're not, and you're on something else, you're exemplifying something else. But everybody believes something. And it was interesting. I had thought about it, but it just came back up, I guess. Our pastor said this week, there are no good people, and it hit me. you know he's right. And yes, there are people who are trying to do good, and there are people who have lived a life of servitude. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, there are no people who are good enough to get to heaven on their own. So that means there are no good people. Everybody has things that they fall short on. And so without Christ, no one makes it. This guy, Jonathan Newman's a pastor for 25 years. It was funny because when I met him, he actually we just started chatting a little bit. We talked about, I got a podcast. Well, after we chatted with him a little bit and saw what he, kind of what he was believing in, I kind of said, we'll put it out there for people to get on and check out. And then we got, said we got a podcast and all of that. And he goes, oh, a couple of my buddies, a couple guys at my church have a podcast, youth pastor and stuff. And I said, I'm also a youth pastor. And he goes, oh yeah, what church is it? And we said, this is Elevation Point Church. And he goes, we're Koinos, right next to the door, right next door in the same building. So our churches actually, have a wall that separate each other, but that's it. And it's not because, and this is the thing, a lot of churches are separated because they believe that they're different or better than other churches. And honestly, we don't separate ourselves from that church because we're different, because we're better. We have a message for some people that maybe that church doesn't have. We have a unique message, and everybody has a unique message because we all made as individuals. We're all made differently. So yeah. So it was an interesting meeting that I had seen him in passing, and we had talked to him here and there about needing parking lot space or things like that. And so we had done some of the business talking, but we had never really talked as people back and forth about, likes and differences and things like that. Not saying that our likes and differences, we had argument, we were vindictive or anything to him, but just, that we just had never talked about those kind of things. So another thing, just as I was preparing, I got an I got a survey, a political survey, and it came in my text to political survey. So I thought that would be an interesting thing to. This is things. It's called an Ohio Opinion Survey, but it's supposed to be about issues that Ohioans face. So, first question was, we're conducting a brief survey about political issues in Ohio, asking if I like, and they would like my opinion. My responses are anonymous, blah blah blah, and they're not selling anything to me. So at least they let me know that they're not going to whatever. So just the normal, how my age, my gender, which I always put as none of their business. No, I'm just joking. I just, All right. So now thinking about the upcoming election, and I kind of talked to you guys about, I did this couple weeks back with the whole, who do you think, who would you vote for? Are you set on your voting and stuff like that? So I thought this would be interesting to actually do it while we were going through here. So now thinking about upcoming election in November 2024, which method of voting are you most likely to choose? Vote in person, at your polling, on election day, vote by mail, mailing in your ballot, absentee ballot, or vote early by casting your ballot in person at your county's early voting location. So I'm an old school guy. I want to vote in person at my polling place on election day. I know that a lot of people are starting to push just voting ahead of time, voting early, get those votes in, because you don't know what could happen on election day, blah blah blah. But if I had COVID and it was election day, I'm walking in and I'm voting still. If you're a voting person, if you're one of the poll workers, I'll wear a mask for you, just keep you safe, or safer, or if you whatever you believe, keep you not as safe, or not care about you one bit because I'm out with COVID. But I'll go out and vote no matter what. Broken leg missing. Sorry, honest Abe. I'm going out to vote. This one is a super important one. All elections are important because, and like with the Jonathan Newman one, it's a state election, but Jenna Powell is who he's trying to replace, and Jenna Powell has been a stick in the side, not even just a thorn, a stick in the side of Democrats trying to push an agenda, and they've done a good job, even with a Republican governor and things like that. They have really been they've gotten some things done that shouldn't have gotten done, and so yeah. So just that kind of thing, where getting out there, getting it started at a low level. The more that we can control at low levels, the better things go. The higher the more control we got. And like I said about the no labels, if this guy could come in as a no labels, and garner some support, get some money out there, they could probably get this seat with $10,000-$15,000 at most, and that would be where you would start if you were starting a third party. And honestly, um, we probably don't need that third party with this. But if we were to look at vulnerable seats where they continue to run the same old crony rhino Republican, then that would be where where you would start to insert yourself. Find somebody, you know, like I mean, I can't believe still that John Fetterman won over Dr. Oz, because he has such a high profile, with some money and some following. You would think that you know he would be able to get himself elected, but at the same time, they got the voting machines. They got the voting machines set up. So we don't know. I did see an article about each of the election campaigns being hacked, and they said they thought it was Iran, which is interesting. That it's Iran, not Russia, or something like that, where they normally push Russia. I'm sure that they're pushing Iran because Iran has been attacking, whether it's Hezbollah or Iran, has been attacking our ships out at sea, pretty heavily over the last so many months, 6 months or so. They're also attacking us in the fact of we've got 67 or so little bases all over the Middle East, and they're getting attacked. And some of them are just, they're just sitting ducks, and some of them are getting attacked as just heavily fortified attacks. So that's also been an issue as of late. They're just being these attacks. So all right. So think again about the general election in November. Please tell me which statement aligns with your view regarding absentee and early in-person voting. I don't know enough about the process for voting absentee by mail or casting my ballot early in person to change how I vote. It's easy. They send you out, for an absentee. They send you out it's not a postcard, but a letter, like an envelope with all of the voting ballots to cast, and you just literally just squiggle it in with a pencil like you did at the voting place, and then you put it back in the self-addressed envelope that they send you, and send it out. I don't even think you have to put a stamp on it, or at least at one point you didn't have to put a stamp on it. You do have to fill out like your name and stuff, but you didn't have to send an ID or anything. There is some kind of like like social security thing to get the package sent out to you, but that kind of thing. So it's not that I don't know about it. Casting your ballot early, you just go down to the county seat, walk in, and they give you basically what you get for voting on day of, and hand it back to them. So says option 2 would be I'd be interested in casting my ballot early, either absentee or in person. I only or mostly vote early in person. I only or mostly vote absentee. I don't trust absentee voting by mail. I only vote on election day or mostly vote on election day. So I'm gonna put that I only or most. I have voted absentee one time, because I was in college, and I also think we voted absentee the year I lived in Atlanta, because when we moved, it was early in the in the or late in the summer, and then the election was in November, and I don't think we got our stuff around in time to go to a place and vote. So, all right. Now will you read a list of political figures in the state? After you read each one, please indicate if you have a favorable or unfavorable impression of that individual. If you read one that you have never heard of, just indicate and move on to the next question. Sweet deal. All right. Do you have an unfavorable or favorable opinion of Bernie Moreno? So I like Bernie Moreno as, he's a businessman. He's built himself up. Everybody's got their skeletons in the closet. His don't seem terrible. He's made some questionable votes at certain times. When he's, or decisions, I guess. But I have a favorable, opinion of him. I do think that he's in trouble going against Sherrod Brown. I do think that when it comes down to it, I was hoping there was another person on the list who's been, I think, attorney general or one of the other, and I was hoping that he would be chosen because I felt like he had a higher profile, and at this point, you can't buy profile. If it weren't for Trump, you would probably see DeSantis, and he has a huge high profile. He just isn't a billionaire. He doesn't have that, but I think that when the next election comes along and his military training and stuff like that, he can lean on that, and that he's been there, that he's done this, that he knows how to lead people. He's led Florida, all of that stuff. He just has to keep in the media. And honestly, I think that's kind of why JD Vance was chosen, is because he's just going to keep in the media. He's just going to keep doing interviews. He's done interviews. He does them, he's done them for the book that he wrote. He does them for being a congressperson, and I think that's he's going to keep things going. Do you have an unfavorable or favorable opinion of Mike DeWine? I will never vote for the Mike DeWine again. With how he worked out COVID. Yeah, I just don't trust him. I don't like him. I don't think he's even a full-on Republican. And he may be the new Republican Party, but I'm out on him. I'm done, which is fine because I think I think this is his last run anyway, in as Ohio governor. But if he ran in my area as a senator, I would figure out someone else to vote for. It would be tough because, it would probably be against Sherrod Brown, which I think is going to end up, unfortunately, beating Bernie Moreno. I hope he doesn't, but, so, excuse me. So I just, his handling of COVID and shutting down Ohio and stuff. If I had a business at that time, we would have been suing. I didn't. I was considered a essential worker, I guess, and so we worked straight through COVID. But just it's what he said was lies, and how he's dealt with, the adversity in Ohio, when things went down, when he was working on things. It's been lies. I mean, it's been issue after issue that he didn't he didn't work it out the right. That's why he didn't work it out the right way. And with that being said, like, there we go. And in that, it was like the train crash. They're saying, "Oh, the water's going to be is it's fine. We burnt the thing." You just put chemicals into the ground. You just burnt chemicals into, you want to talk about the Green New Deal, or the green, being a green advocate or whatever, or working on that kind of stuff. And we burnt the chemicals off that train, and we let them seep into the ground, whatever was left, and things like that, in the Ohio River watershed. Like, I don't not sure if you realize this, but the Ohio River runs all the way to the Mississippi, from Pittsburgh, from that area that you basically burnt off. And I mean, that's close to 1,000 miles. I mean, that's a couple, maybe 600-700 miles. If it's not 1,000 miles, it's pretty close. And all of that feeds different tributaries all the way down, you know. So, and then it feeds into the Mississippi, which feeds down to the ocean, to the Gulf of Mexico. Sorry, not the ocean. Then in from the Gulf of Mexico into the ocean. But so I think, that's my issues there with him. He just, I just don't think he dealt with things right. And when he did that, he's like, well, yeah, if I live down there, I drink the water and blah blah. Sure, then come on down and hang out for a month and drink the water. But again, you can't put your money where your mouth is. And so with that, oh my goodness, cameras are killing me tonight. So there we go. Green screen. Got to see the green screen for a second if you were on the live broadcast. So anyhow, so yes, Mike DeWine, although he is a Republican, this is where I cut ties with it. This is why I say I'm not always a Republican. I don't always vote with the Republican. Just most of the time, in a two-party system, they're the lesser of two evils. Two evils. So, we go from there. Sherrod Brown, unfavorable. I mean, he talks crazy out of both sides of his mouth, which is how you talk on a regular basis. But it's just, on one hand he'll say, "Oh, the border is an issue," and then the next time he says, "Look, we fixed the border." So you can't follow everything he says, because he's just trying to get reelected. He's always just trying to get reelected. He's not getting anything done. He's not putting in real consequential votes. He's not adding new legislation that can actually do anything. He's not taking away old legislation that prohibits things, prohibits trade or businesses, or prohibits his people from being free, or from doing things in our country. But he's just there, and he's not, he's telling you a story that you want to hear so that you reelect him, and most of the time that story is not true. So, do I have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of Donald Trump. And this is funny because they put very favorable, somewhat favorable at the top. On Sherrod Brown, it was very unfavorable, somewhat unfavorable at the top. And so it's like, are you leading me to do, to do something? Is this so? With this, I'm gonna put it somewhat favorable. I like Donald Trump as an executive branch member. Do I love him so much that I would follow him into a fire? I don't know. Depends on who's in the fire, what we're doing, type thing. It's not just a blind follow here. Do I like him because he's a Republican? No. He is a new era, a pro-Republican, more of a centralist, more of a populist, and I'm not as much, a populist. I want the people to have representation and rule, but I want to stay close to that Constitution because the Constitution is there to hold back the government. And the bigger and bigger we get in the government, those 500 people in Congress, they're ruling things. They're in charge. And the only thing that keeps them bound is that it's 500 people, and we've got some people in there that are still good people. So, I really like him. I think he's a good executive leader because he does fight for America, and he is, and from what I've seen since he's been shot, I've seen a little more humble. I haven't seen him over the last week or two here, but I think he's making conscious decisions that are supposed to be good for the country. J.D. Vance, I think, was a conscious decision. He probably could have gotten Ramaswamy or the one woman. He could have gotten one of those people to run as his running mate and probably gotten a more favorable position on it. But I think at the same time, Biden was not out yet, and I don't know that he knew he needed it. So, I I lean towards very favorable. Again, if his personality was more of just a gracious, humble guy, and he just, but some of his extra bragging and stuff like that, or extra personality, just, it's cool. It's gotten him where he needs to be. It's gotten him where he is. It's probably, for him as the president, it's probably good, because it will help disarm or hold back people who are not, who would not normally, who would normally just run over a lesser personality. But there's that. So, do you have a unfavorable or favorable opinion of Kamala Harris? And this is one that's the very unfavorables at the top again. And so, obviously, I hit very unfavorable. I can't listen to her. She doesn't say anything with any substance. Anything she does say, 20 minutes later, she's going to say the opposite. And 30 minutes later, she's going to say the opposite. So, okay. So that's all the people. So now thinking about the issues, specifically impacting the state, which of the following do you consider the most important issue facing the state of Ohio? Improving infrastructure and roads, addressing social issues like religion or abortion. Abortion has now become a social issue. Protecting the Second Amendment, combating the opioid crisis, drugs, improving homelessness with Medicaid, reforming Social Security, Medicare, providing school choice with parents' rights, improving crime, increasing safety, improving education, political leadership and integrity, decrease government gridlock and corruption, energy independence, secure the border, immigration, protecting the climate and environment, reducing wokeism and cancel culture, improving healthcare access, decreasing the national debt and deficit, decreasing taxes, reducing inflation, strengthening the economy and protecting jobs, or I don't know or refuse. So this is an interesting question because they want you to put one most important issue, and where, you know, obviously it's nice to drive on good roads and stuff like that, and improving the infrastructure is something that I've actually said that, we as a country, our infrastructure lacks pretty heavily because we don't have, the internet set up. We're not improving anything like roads or transportation across the country. We are one of the largest countries in size in the world. Now, I do know China is larger. Russia can, post miles, but when you start to talk about it, Russia, China, Australia fits somewhere around the same size, and that's a full continent. And so when you start talking about that, yes, we're one of the larger countries, but we fall behind other countries like Korea, England, all of those countries when it comes to infrastructure, like, having, high speed data, having, different, the trains and things like that can get across country quickly. If we had a train system that went from, a high speed train system that went from one side of the country to the other, it could probably do the whole, well, I mean, you could do the whole country in about 15 hours. If we had the bullet trains that run about 100 to 120 miles an hour, and they were just a straight shot from San Francisco to DC, or San Francisco or DC to, San Diego. You could cut the time down to 15, 20 hours, where right now across, to drive even from like our area to, Phoenix or so is like a 23-hour drive. And so cutting 5 or 6 hours seems like, oh, but at that same time, you're setting them up on a train system so they can sleep when they need to, so people aren't driving. And there, it would be a travel setup. I know we don't respect trains in our country, but it is a way to pool resources. You wouldn't have, a bunch of people driving, and maybe we would never have a bunch of people driving, but this also opens the country up to people who wouldn't normally travel or wouldn't be able to travel. It also helps people who can't fly, who are not able to do, flights and stuff like that because of health issues. It opens the U.S. up and travel up to elderly people who wouldn't normally get on an airplane or wouldn't normally do the travel like that. And so, that kind of thing opens that up. But I don't think, this is one of the biggest things that the country, or even people in my state are facing right now. I do think that, abortion is a giant issue. And I do think that is, being addressed as a social issue like religion and abortion. I think those are two major issues. Um, and I don't know if they 100% go hand in hand, but I know that as a Christian, I obviously don't, support abortion. I don't also judge a person for having an abortion. Again, it's kind of like, your sins are your sins, and there is a day of judgment, and those things will be adjudicated by God someday, and I have no authority to do that. So that's again, that's not for me, but being the other side of, the actual act of having an abortion, if it were illegal, obviously less people would get it, because 94, 95, 97% of people get an abortion because the pregnancy is inconvenient for their life. Now, I'm not saying that it's not better for that person to not have a child, but that's part of it being inconvenient. So, if I know you, you know me. If I know, and I'm saying this, I'm not condemning anybody, but I'm saying that if you think about it, the root of it is inconvenience. It's not the right time in your life. You don't have the income to be able to, take care of a child. You don't have, the resources. You don't have the mental capacity, things of that nature. You're not married. You're not, you're whatever. It just, any of those things, if that's the case, then, those are still inconveniences in your life. Obviously, if you were raped and you have an abortion, I still believe that, any child that is conceived, that soul that has been created is a miracle. And that, any person who's built, conceived and created is not there's no mistakes. I think that, and I'm sure that this will be met with some resistance, but I think that there is some mindsets that the devil will play on that will hold you back. So if you can't get past that mindset, maybe it's best for you, but at the same time, the mindset is holding you back. The devil wants to get in there, create a little bit of doubt, and then you do what you do. And if you've done that, and you feel condemned for doing that, no condemnation. The devil will try to hold you back by it, but get yourself out of it, and you know get yourself in the right mindset, that there aren't sins that Jesus didn't die on the cross for. As long as you're not blaspheming the Holy Ghost, or the or God, you're redeemable. And I don't know that you can put God in a box enough to say, even if you did those other things that aren't supposed to be redeemable, that you come with a contrite heart and repentance, that God doesn't say, okay, I still love you. As my creation, I still love you. And so, I don't know until the day of judgment on your life, or the last day of your life, that you have that you don't have the time, and you probably ought to be using it, because that time isn't promised to anybody. So again, it's a very important option. We're going to put that on the top, right now. Protecting the Second Amendment is super important, but again, in the grand scheme of things, if they took your guns away, you'd still be able to, practice your religion and things like that. Opioid crisis is big in Ohio. And I think it's one of those things that even came to my doorstep. And I don't say even as in, my doorstep's so high and exalted or anything like that. I just say, in my family, it did affect us. And so, kind of like cancer, and kind of like everything else, is everybody goes through things, and no one's exempt. And even if you are a Christian or whatever, it's not rosy days and rainbows every day. You're going to go through some things. And so, I do think that's a big one in Ohio. The Medicare, Medicaid thing, the homelessness, and reforming Social Security. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to get through that, but this is also part of the power play that they hold. They hold this broken up system of Medicare, and they use it as a talking point. They use it as paying into Social Security. We got your back here. We're going to cover you. And honestly, if you just take care of yourself, if you just get in early and start putting the money back and stuff like that, it doesn't take a ton if you start early enough. And no nothing against people who have Medicaid and Social Security and stuff like that, but just and some people couldn't or didn't save for them for their future. And I can say I haven't been the best at it, but just looking at the way you track it, and the way it's it can build itself with interest and stuff like that, you can do it, and then you don't have to worry about Social Security or anything like that. So providing school choice, yes. I mean, I'm honestly worried, kind of in that right now, with Mila getting older and stuff, and getting ready to go to and getting to the school age in the next few years, figuring out that. But at the same time, they still are allowing you to homeschool your child. They're still allowing you to move your, open schools and stuff like that is a little tough. But I don't care about political leadership, except for having the integrity. Just make sure that, as an intelligent voter, people who have been voting for Pelosi for years, they're not intelligent voters. That's it. I'm sorry. You're not, if you're voting for people like that, you're not an intelligent voter. If you've been voting for Mitch McConnell over the last 5 years or so, 5 to 8 years, I guess, he hasn't had your back. You can see that in his leadership, So decreasing governmental gridlock. I mean, that's kind of what I voted for when I tried to vote against the 60% supermajority on amendment issues. Is that Make it, if we're gonna make it harder for them to put it in, and they can get it through, let's make it easier. Let's make it as easy as we can to repeal it. So if it does come, then it can go. But if we make it hard for it to come, to get there, to an amendment to get there, well, like issue 1 about abortion here, then we make it hard to get rid of it also. And I know that is a hot take, or a stance that's against stances, but at the same point, it gets the thing done, and it makes the government lighter weight and easier to move. So yes, I want it to be hard for people to mess things up. But I also want it to be easy for it to be fixed. So, energy independence, that'll be great. But that's more of an economic thing, and economic things will come and go. And you can kind of work them yourself. Strengthening the economy and protecting jobs is important, and it's important to me. And even as a person who, we don't have a great, I don't have a job other than to do this, and I work in the ministry and stuff like that, and have other podcasts and creation and stuff like that, and work for uh, a couple companies doing website development and stuff. But strengthening the economy and protecting jobs is big. Decreasing taxes, reducing inflation. It costs, on average, each person, each middle-aged income, $1,000 more a month to buy food, gas, clothing. The normal things you buy every month have gone up about $1,000 a month. So, that's $12,000 a year. That's pretty easy math. So unless you got, if you were making $100,000 a year, you would have to get a 12% raise. I don't know too many companies out there giving 12% raises. If you're making $80,000 a year, yep, you're looking at a 15% raise. Off the top of my head, I went to school. But in that, I don't know, companies that are giving that out, they're not giving inflationary rates out. And that's not just, that's everybody. If you're making $40,000 a year, that's 30% raise. Nobody gets that. You better be getting a better job, bigger job, faster, learn some skills, get out of that job, do something. And that's honestly, that's close to what I was making as a learning coordinator, at Chewy. I was making a little better than that, but not much. It would have been over 20% for me. So, reading over the list, it's a pretty easy pick. For me, obviously, it's religion and abortion. Making sure that those things are addressed. That, like we talked about with the Olympics and stuff. That, why are Christians upset? Because you're mocking their God. If you were mocking Muhammad, Muslims would have attacked. Like, we said we weren't amused. And I'm proud of the people who have said that they weren't amused. Whether the person meant to show the Last Supper or not, it still did. It still looked like that to us. And so I think that, you know, it's something that we've got to continue to raise our voice and say we're not amused about this. We're not, we want something different, you know? And France is France. France is going to be that way. They're going to do the weirdest, most avant-garde thing there is, but at the same time, that's where it's at. If we're allowed to be, we're allowed to not be amused. There are 2.4 billion of us out there, and you know we can stand up and say, listen. So at least 2.4 billion of us, since we're not able to count all of the Chinese Christians that are underground. So if the November 5th, 2024 general election for Congress, and other local state offices were being held today, would you vote for the Republican candidate or the Democrat candidate? And it says definitely the Republican candidate, probably the Republican candidate, lean towards the Republican candidate, undecided, lean Democrat, probably Democrat, definitely Democrat. I'm gonna put lean Republican. Most likely, it would come down mostly Republican. But I have voted for an independent before. I have voted for people who write in candidates and things. And you can say, well, that's a thrown away vote, and maybe it is. But if these people don't get votes and encouragement, then they don't continue to run. People don't continue to run. That's why we don't have a third party, is because at one point there was a third party, and that party split the vote and got the other party in. But if they continued to run, that party would get stronger, and there would be a three-way run instead of two sides being split. And so you would have more of a right side, a left side, and a more of a central side, and you would have people on each side just voting for whatever, and that's what even some of my friends that are Democrats even have said. If there was a more moderate choice, we'd be a lot happier with the vote this time. And so if there was able to be a third party that was more of a central side of things, I still wouldn't vote for them. I want to vote for someone who's ultra conservative, who's constitutionalist, who isn't pushing for big government, who's pushing the government out of things, less regulation, less, and so that's where I'm at. But at the same time, I feel like that the Republican Party is becoming that centralist party, and there isn't that conservative side of things, or that more conservative side. Libertarians and things like that, they just don't get the coverage. They don't get, and that's because the system's only set up for two parties. And that's probably the biggest issue, is if you have two heads, you can control what's going on. If you have three or four, there's less likely that somebody at the top or somebody could control a group of people, could control the group. So now thinking about November 5th, 2024, general election for the U.S. president were held today. For whom would you vote for? Kamala Harris, Democrat, obviously. Donald Trump, Republican. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., independent or undecided, prefer not to say. Like, there's no libertarian. Like, there's a libertarian in a Green Party, so I'm not sure why they don't have that. But out of these three, four options, I would probably go for the Donald Trump vote. November 5th, again, election is held today. Bernie Moreno, Republican, or Sherrod Brown, Democrat. Obviously, I'm not a real fan of Sherrod Brown. Bernie Moreno, I like him as well as any candidate. So, take him on there. Next, here are some statements about why voting in the upcoming election is important. So and then you put somewhat to unsure, much less likely, somewhat likely, more likely, much more likely. So, and these statements are statements makes you less or more likely to vote in this election. So basically, this is the why or how you're going, how you're voting, what you're voting for. The only way to fix the economy, end inflation, and secure our border is ensuring that the take back of the White House and the Senate. It is important to take it back for those reasons. So that is somewhat more likely a reason why I will be voting. The only way to secure our border and decrease inflation is to vote out radical Democrats like Sherrod Brown, Biden, and Harris. That is one of the main reasons why you need to vote this time. Is you need your voice to be heard. Now, if you're voting, if you think that radical Democrats like Sherrod Brown and Biden Harris administration are great, then get your voice out there. If you think that's the best for the country, get that out there. I have no qualms against you. I do not agree with you, obviously, but if that's your thinking, fine. Kamala Harris showed poor judgment as a leader by picking Tim Walz as her vice president candidate, a man who repeatedly lied about his military record, falsely portrayed himself as a combat veteran of the war in Afghanistan. Yeah, no, the guy actually retired or left his group when they got spun up, and you can be who you are, but you're showing your colors here on that. Sherrod Brown voted with Biden Harris agenda over 97% of the time. That's why I said he's not he's not helping, and he's just keeping the vote going. If Kamala Harris wins the White House, the only thing keeping her from ramming through her California liberal policies in the United States is the Senate. Yeah, I mean that's part of the reason to vote, but at the same time, really the Senate is the power. The House and the Senate are the power stroke there. They're the ones creating these laws and stuff like that. Now the president decides whether he's going to execute those laws, but at the same time, the more and more that they create those laws, someone's going to execute them. Democrats want to pack the Supreme Court with liberal justices to tip the balance in their favor. If Sherrod Brown and the radical Democrat, blah, 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 they will trample the Supreme Court. They probably will. And honestly, that's probably one of the main reasons is to continue to keep the constitutional setup alive, even though that Republicans back in the day added to the Supreme Court to kind of do what they're doing now. I have a few more questions. Knowing the following, which statement would make you most likely to vote absentee early? Voting absentee is safe and secure. Military, if the military votes absentee, you can too. You can vote your absentee ballot early in person and avoid long lines on election day. Voting early in person is almost the same as voting in person on the day. I mean, I guess the reason to do it is because It's just like voting regularly. But which of the following political parties do you consider yourself a part of? I mean, I'm not 100% a libertarian. Sometimes I go beyond them a little bit. Green Party, definitely not part of that. I'm more of an independent or no preference. I do align myself with the conservative side of the Republican Party because it's more conservative, obviously. But, all right, that's the end of the survey. So, just, so I guess that's kind of the where I stand on elections at this point is, like I kind of said, is I'm kind of, the presidential election is important, but at the same time, the elections that are really more important are the congressional ones. And honestly, the local ones where, you can stand up, you can get your name heard. This guy, Jonathan Newman, just had a tent and, just started, he was giving out Trump signs and taking pictures with cardboard Trump and things of that nature. And, you can get he can get his name out, get his word out. And so I think with that it was, it was a smart idea to do it the way he did it. And, he's getting out there and doing something. So, all right, that's where I'm at. So let's end the podcast on a completely unpolitical note and go back to the Florida man. Get back to the basics of a great Why I'm Angry podcast. And so it was funny because I went to the Florida Man, lately, what's going on in Florida Man. And you get, unfortunately, you get a bunch of those, Florida Man killed a guy, or Florida Man did this, or, Florida Man named Santa Claus gets in trouble for child pornography or something like that. And so some of those things, but it was interesting to me that there were two Florida Man stories where the guy was accused of posing as a veterinarian. And in one of the stories, the guy posed as a veterinarian and performed surgery on a pregnant dog. He performed a cesarean section, a C-section, on a Chihuahua who later died of multiple complications from the surgery. So they've arrested him because he doesn't have, obviously, a medical license for pets or for dogs or for animals. And so ended up killing this dog. But yeah, so he was accused of posing as a veterinarian. And that was on August 14th of last year. And in July 4th of this year, Florida man who posed as a veterinarian has been charged with grand theft. Offered his services on social media and claimed to make medicine for pets. So, I mean, snake oil salesmen and things from the past are not always all gone. Nothing new under the sun here. But can you see that Florida man poses as a veterinarian of all things? Like normally you wouldn't think of veterinarian as the thing to start duping people, but the pet industry is a giant industry in the world. And so, market share on the pet industry is $303 billion as of last year, which is up 16% from the year before. So the more you think about that, the more you think about how people don't want to have children or don't want to have the responsibility of children. Yet they love their pets like children. And how we've replaced even as we've retired and things like people have retired and things like that they've gotten pets to kind of stay at be a companion when their children are gone and things of that nature, have gone out to do whatever they do and things of that. So I understand it's just kind of an interesting way to play the game and to get one over on people is by just going out and as a veterinarian. So um this the next one is a half naked Florida man crashes car into a jail. Let me hit the button on the video here so I don't continue to have to fight that. Okay, so a Florida man is in jail after crashing his car into jail. A Martin County Sheriff's Office said Jeff Leedy, 40, who was half naked and acting erratically, also made some alarming statements. Video captured the moments when Leedy drove his car from the jail parking lot up the walkway and then through the glass lobby doors of the facility in Jupiter. So I was wondering how he got through security, how he got past normally they have like a barbed wire or a razor wire on top of a fence, and they have a fence. Some of them have, barriers and things like that that make them less of a soft target, especially around the workout areas and the outside areas and stuff like that. So, of course, the cameras and our correctional officers inside saw the vehicle enter the lobby. They came out. They were confronted by the suspect, the chief deputy said. He said after crashing through the doors, Leedy threw rubber snakes and cell phones onto the ground and doused his vehicle with motor oil, all while being half naked from the waist down. I was going to say, if he just had his shirt off, then he's not really a half naked Florida man. He's just a Florida man. But having his pants off, waist down nakedness, that's different. Leedy also reported making homicidal statements and comments about former President Donald Trump, because when you're running your car into jail, definitely threaten the president or the former president. He just talked about his hatred for former President Donald Trump. He also emphasized that the devil told him to kill as many people as possible. If that's the case, why is he running into a jail? You got to think, these people who say the devil made me do it, how intelligent are those people? Are if they're following the devil, if the devil has told them to do something and they're like, oh yeah, that seems like an intelligent thing to do, maybe their intelligent level or their mastery of decision making is not at its highest level. So maybe maybe that should be checked. As for the jail itself, the sheriff's office says they'll be installing extra protection for the future. I mean, a lot of them have like at least a concrete barrier that you have to kind of walk between the car couldn't get through, to stop them from being able to drive up a walkway. So, I mean, it seems pretty inexpensive, and it's pretty effective. Most cars don't. I mean, even your big monster trucks and stuff like that, hitting a concrete barrier is it'll at least slow you down. So yeah. Oh, let's see if there's anything else. Florida Man. Yeah, we talked about that, Florida Man. We've talked about the one that was attempting to cross the Atlantic in a giant hamster wheel. Florida Man shoots at a pool cleaner. I think we talked about that even. Gator bite, that seems pretty standard. Yep, another gator. Caught on drone this time. Yep, and we got the Florida Man from 2022 that fought his neighbor's rooster, and went to jail for killing his neighbor's chicken. That was that was a fun one. The guy says chickens are dying every day at roosters and churches and KFC guys. Not sure why everybody's up in arms about that. So, all right. Well, let's go look over headlines real quick. We got obviously Ukraine had to make a couple moves, an incursion back, trying to take back over some of their area. Puerto Rico got hit by a Hurricane Ernesto. Left over 730,000 people with utility customers in the dark. And lots of damage. So about 235,000 people have no water. So that's just being mindful, being prayer about that. Stonehenge's central altar stone originated from northern Scotland, roughly 450 miles from the ancient England site, over 300 miles further than previously believed. So, I mean, they thought it was about 150 miles from there. Yeah, it's 450 miles. So the discovery suggests significant collaboration among Neolithic peoples inhabiting the British Isles over 4,600 years ago. Or to save on postage, there was floods, or there was a glacier that came across, or something like that moved that stone from its original setting place in Scotland. I mean, there are other ways that they didn't just like throw it on a UPS truck and get it there. So, but whatever. Let's go back. Starbucks got a new boss. They just picked up the CEO of Chipotle. So we'll be watching both of those to see where Chipotle goes from here, because they have made a major comeback from the whole E. coli setup that they had for pretty much a year or so, with the lettuce and then the cilantro and then the green onions, and then they were just a part of all of that. And it's tough also because it's not just them, it was all fresh food vendors. But they just are the kind of spokesperson for fresh foods. So we'll see. Starbucks has been in decline for its DEI inclusion. Yeah. Its diversity stands basically that just have turned people off to it. There's enough other coffee companies out there. We have a good regional one around us. It's called Winans. We also have, which is not a sponsor, but if they want to, I like the Highlander Grog lattes. I know lattes are not super manly, but I don't care. If you want to come fight, fisticuffs at midnight. But you know, so not a sponsor, but we've got some local places. We've got um just some great places, and it's easy to replace Starbucks with those places because Starbucks doesn't always make it super easy to get in. You know, a coffee shop isn't always, unless it's got a drive through or something like that, and some of the Starbucks do. But you know, let's see, Mpox emergency in Africa. You got Kansas newspaper raid, charge. That was one we actually talked about. This is an update on the former Kansas police chief has been charged with felony obstruction of justice after last year's raid on a local newspaper that drew national attention and criticism from press freedom advocates. So basically, in the story, this newspaper and the writer from the newspaper kind of went against this sheriff, started questioning some of the arrests, some of the things that they were doing, and kind of suspicious thefts and things around the area. And the police initially justified the raid on suspicions of identity theft and computer crimes for the newspaper staff, which prosecutors concluded was unfounded in any way. And the paper was actively investigating the police chief for allegedly previous sexual misconduct. And so the police chief came in and raided the newspaper and try to shut him down for putting out the news. And that's of anything, a newspaper is putting out the news. So the publisher's 98-year-old mother and co-owner of the newspaper was also present during the home raid and appeared visibly upset in the police body camera footage. She died a day later of a heart attack, which her son attributes to the distress, which I'm sure he's got a pretty decent case on that. I'm not sure how you prove that or whatever, but there was body cam footage of her being excited and upset. So that's that. But so yeah, with our podcast, we're gonna shut her down now. And any extra thoughts that I have, any extra words to say, are going to be on overtime podcasts. Maybe I'll start doing. I'm working on trying to do a Monday, Tuesday, short podcast, just an update of the weekend and things like that. And so, those things will be on that $2 subscription. Get on Spreaker. It's in the comments. Hit the button or hit the link and, sign up. $2 a month. If we can get a couple hundred people that can give us some support at $2 a month, then we would be able to start upgrading the studio, get our word out there, do a little more advertising, and start to get sponsorships and things like that, so that again, it takes the pressure off of us to be able to create openly and freely, and it takes the pressure off of you guys to get all of the us asking all the time, hey, can you give us some money and stuff. We this is the part I hate the most about it. I love being on here and creating and talking to you guys about how dumb the politicians are, or Florida man stories and stuff like that. I like getting on here with the guys and talking about all the conspiracy theories and things like that. So, that's where I want to be. And so we need the help. The subscription right now is $2 a month, and that just helps us to kind of push the agenda a little farther, helps us to be able to take some more time and be able to educate ourselves and get ready for the podcast with more time. Also helps us to be able to bring in more speakers, more talent, because a lot of talent isn't free, and they don't work like me. So, and then hopefully in the next month or so here we'll get this Jonathan Newman. We worked with him a little bit. We'll talk to him and try to get him, at least get a segment out of him, and get a few minutes and do something like that. So there's a lot of things that can be done, and a lot of things coming down the pike with that. But just get in there, help us out, and we love you guys, and we appreciate all the help that you give us. This is the chef here in the Freestyle Man Cave studio. Remember to follow, like, and share the Why I'm Angry podcast across all social media platforms and anywhere you get your podcast. The Why I'm Angry podcast ends now.